Friends, we've got ourselves a real humdinger of a diplomatic debacle. Picture this. The Oval Office, usually a place for stuffy handshakes and carefully worded statements, became a battleground. President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky, two leaders who should be thick as thieves right now, went head-to-head. It was a verbal slugfest for the ages. Zelensky flew in for a high-stakes meeting, hoping to secure much-needed support for his country. He wanted to talk about the pesky issue of a certain large, aggressive neighbor to the east. You know, the one with the nukes and the penchant for invading sovereign nations. But things went south faster than a spring break trip to Siberia. A proposed mineral deal, meant to be the centerpiece of the meeting, blew up in everyone's faces. Trump, never one to back down from a fight, reportedly threatened to cut off military aid to Ukraine entirely. Ouch! This wasn't just your run-of-the-mill diplomatic spat. This was a full-blown five-alarm dumpster fire, and trust me, the fallout from this one is going to be felt for a long, long time. Now, let's dig into the nitty-gritty of this mineral deal, shall we? Ukraine, as it happens, sits on a gold mine. Not actual gold, mind you, but something even more valuable in this day and age: rare earth minerals. We're talking lithium, cobalt, the stuff that makes your smartphone light up and your electric car go vroom. Trump, being the savvy businessman he is, saw a golden opportunity. He proposed a deal that would give the U.S. a hefty chunk. We're talking 50% of the revenue from Ukraine's mineral sales. On the surface, you might think, hey, win-win, right? Not so fast. Zelensky, understandably, had some concerns. For starters, the deal offered little in the way of security guarantees. It's kind of hard to focus on digging up precious minerals when you've got a hostile superpower breathing down your neck, wouldn't you say? Zelensky also argued that the deal was heavily skewed in favor of the U.S. And let's be honest, he wasn't wrong. It was the kind of deal that would make even the most hardened Wall Street shark blush. As if the mineral deal wasn't enough of a sticking point, Trump decided to up the ante. He reportedly threatened to halt all military aid to Ukraine. That's right, folks, the same military aid that Ukraine desperately needs to defend itself against, a certain large, aggressive neighbor to the east. Now, Trump has always been a bit, shall we say, unconventional when it comes to foreign policy. But even for him, this was a new low. It was like watching a toddler throw a tantrum in the middle of a peace summit. The message was clear. If you want our help, Zelensky, you'd better be prepared to play by our rules. And by our rules, I mean Trump's rules. Because let's be honest, when has he ever cared about what anyone else thinks? Section 4, From Bad to Worse, a timeline of Trump's controversial actions. To fully grasp the gravity of this diplomatic train wreck, we need to rewind the clock a bit. This wasn't just a one-off meltdown by Trump. Oh no, this was the culmination of months, if not years, of questionable decisions and inflammatory rhetoric. Remember when Trump publicly called Zelensky a dictator? Yeah, that really happened. When confronted about it later, he simply shrugged and said, "Did I say that?" Classic Trump. Then there were the numerous instances of Trump cozying up to Putin, even as Russia continued to destabilize Ukraine. He even went so far as to call for Russia's reinstatement into the G7. Because, who needs international consequences for invading sovereign nations, right? Section 5. Is Putin listening? Trump's cozy relationship with Russia raises eyebrows. Speaking of Putin, let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we? Trump's relationship with the Russian president has always been a bit, shall we say, complicated. Some might even call it downright chummy. While Zelensky was desperately trying to rally international support against Russian aggression, Trump was busy having private phone calls with Putin. And let's just say the transcripts of those calls didn't exactly inspire confidence in Ukraine. Then there were the numerous back-channel meetings between U.S. and Russian officials, often held without any Ukrainian representation. It's almost like Trump was actively trying to cut Zelensky out of the loop. Section 6. The world reacts, international community expresses concern and support. As you can imagine, the international community was not exactly thrilled about Trump's antics. European leaders, already wary of Trump's unpredictable nature, expressed their deep concern over the deteriorating situation in Ukraine. France, never one to mince words, issued a strongly worded statement condemning Russia's blatant aggression and reaffirming its support for Ukraine's sovereignty. Poland, which shares a border with Ukraine and has its own complicated history with Russia, offered its unwavering solidarity. Even Italy, usually content to sit on the sidelines, called for an emergency summit between the US, the EU, and other Western allies. It seemed like everyone, with the notable exception of Trump himself, recognized the gravity of the situation. Section 7 Ukraine in the crosshairs, the real-world consequences of diplomatic fallout. While the diplomats were busy exchanging barbs and issuing strongly worded statements, the real-world consequences of this diplomatic train wreck were playing out on the ground in Ukraine. Russian-backed separatists, emboldened by Trump's apparent indifference, stepped up their attacks. Ukrainian soldiers, outgunned and outmanned, fought bravely, but they were losing ground. Civilian casualties mounted, and the country teetered on the brink of chaos. To make matters worse, Trump's decision to halt military aid had a devastating impact on Ukraine's ability to defend itself. It was like watching a boxer get knocked down and then having the referee tie his hands behind his back.